Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
Good evening and welcome to Let's Go Green with Zoe Ryan filling in for Aisling O'Rourke over the next couple of weeks. On tonight's show, top tips for managing our food waste, raising awareness through art and measures to reduce the amount of wildlife killed on our roads. On the back of National Food Waste Recycling Week, Circular Economy Co-ordinator at MyWaste Pauline McDonogh tells us the best practices to follow when it comes to managing our brown bin waste. Coosan-born and raised artist McKiernan and Biodiversity Officer in Roscommon County Council, Gerard Hannon, discuss her latest art installation aimed at raising awareness for a unique wetland ecosystem along the Shannon. And Aoife McPartlin from Wildlife Rehabilitation Ireland reveals the systems in place and education provided to drivers in other countries for reporting injured or dead wildlife on the roads, and explains why Ireland could benefit from having such protocols in place. Now, last Monday being a bank holiday, there was no Let's Go Green for us to mark National Food Waste Recycling Week, which ran from May 30th to yesterday, June 7th. But in the same vein as they say a dog isn't just for Christmas, we engage in food waste disposal year round. So joining me now to offer some guidance when it comes to managing our brown bins is Pauline McDonogh, Circular Economy Co-ordinator at MyWaste. Pauline, thanks for taking my call.
You're very welcome, Zoe.
Now, Pauline, year on year, the uptake of food waste management is on the rise and correct usage is as well. But tell us, how should we be managing our food waste for optimum results?
Yes. So the most important thing is to organise yourself in your kitchen and also in your garden so that you're separating food waste. Now, it's so easy. We're all so busy to become distracted. And if we don't have a visual reminder of what food waste we're creating and what we're doing with it, it's very easy for it all to become tumbled in with the rest of the waste that we might have, and then it'll end up in the general waste bin. Yeah. So one of the tips and tricks that we really recommend is using a kitchen caddy and having that separate small bin, or it can be a little basin, or even I've seen people using, a colander that they put a compostable liner into.
Yes.
And they have that right beside the sink. And then when they're washing their vegetables or scraping their plate, they automatically see the food waste separation container, and that's where they put their food waste.
Yeah, it's an out of sight, out of mind thing, isn't it? That if it's in your eye line, you will actually use it. But give us a little bit of a refresher. What items can and can't go into the food waste or the brown bin? Because I think sometimes people still are a little confused as to what's considered general waste and what can actually go into that brown bin.
So in your kitchen, your brown bin waste is literally all of your food. So it doesn't matter whether it's raw or cooked, fresh food that somehow didn't get used, or old manky food, let's call it, that you found lurking at the back of the fridge.
Yeah.
It's all food. And good examples would be all our vegetable peelings. Maybe you have a salad bag and you didn't use it all up, and there's stuff that looks a little bit slimy at the bottom and you're going, oh God, I don't want to. Well, it wouldn't be safe to eat that.
Yeah.
So you'd be popping that into your brown bin. Eggshells, coffee grounds, tea bags can go in there. And then some of the more unusual things that people may not think about in the kitchen is kitchen roll that you've used to mop up a spill.
That's right.
So, yeah, imagine you've knocked over, half a cup of tea and you used a kitchen roll. Pop that into the brown bin. Also, a lot of the time say, I don't always wash frying pans. I might clean a frying pan using a kitchen roll.
Yeah.
And there will be oil and grease on that piece of kitchen roll. That's perfect to go into the brown bin. And then greasy cardboard, like say, for example, Friday night, there might be a treat to get a pizza and there might be a piece of the pizza cardboard that's very greasy. If it's very greasy, I'll pull that piece off, that'll go in the brown bin, and then the clean cardboard from the takeaway pizza will go into into the recycling bin, I should say.
Now that I didn't know. That's interesting, because I know that the rule with what can go into the recycling bin is they say that it can't be soiled. So if I had the likes of like that, a cardboard box, yep, absolutely, cardboard goes into the recycling. But I always thought if it was soiled with like that, your grease mark from your pizza or whatever type of takeaway it is you got, I thought instantly the whole thing had to go into your general waste. So you can actually, as you say, segregate the bit that has been soiled and pop that into your brown bin.
Yes, and obviously we don't want masses of cardboard in the brown bin, because it is all about collecting food waste. But grease-stained cardboard can be processed during the composting process.
So if we look at best practices, as I said, you've mentioned there about lining the caddy, keeping the caddy at eyesight so that you actually use it. Then we've talked about what you can put into the bin. But if we look at contamination, about the bin intruders that we don't want to make their way into the brown bin, give me an example of some of those.
Yes, so people are doing really well with food waste separation. So our contamination level is at about 9%, which is low. Yeah. But the whole trick to this now, because we've 1.4 million households separating food waste, we don't want that number to grow. So the main thing is to make sure that no packaging or plastics go into the brown bin. And the main bin intruders that we see really are around packaging. So again, we go back to what's easy and what's slightly more difficult. So if you're doing the tidy up of the fridge, which most of us do maybe once a week before we go out to do the shop, and you might say, for example, say you found a pot of fruit salad and it's it was opened and now it's not looking very fresh and it needs to be thrown away. Well, it's a very simple job to decant that fruit. You'd literally just tip the pot over into the brown bin, rinse the pot and then put the pot into the recycling bin. But if it's something a little bit more yucky, like say, for example, coleslaw, you might be going, oh God, and you're looking at it. And this is where people go, oh, we'll chuck the whole thing into the brown bin.
Yeah, or the temptation is to put the whole thing in the general waste bin.
Exactly. So again, on mywaste.ie, we have videos and tips and tricks, but definitely we are seeing some packaging, and it is a reminder to people that please don't put your packaging into the food waste bin, into the brown bin. But then our other big problem is the incorrect use of liners. So we always recommend that to keep your kitchen caddy clean, you should use a liner. And it needs to be a 100% compostable liner. It can't be biodegradable or it can't be plastic. So a biodegradable bag has still got plastic in it.
Right.
And during the processing into making compost, the bag will become shredded until it literally becomes a microplastic. And once that microplastic is part of the composting process, it will eventually end up back in our soil and then eventually back into our food growing systems as well. So it's really important, if you do one thing, it's to make sure that you know what your liner is made of and only choose a compostable liner.
And Pauline, tell us, what is this all for? When we look at the likes of your recycling bin, it's been around for that long now that we all know, okay, you're putting the items into the recycling bin. They're then going to go away. They're going to be sorted, cleaned, and essentially used to make new things. So they're going to be repurposed. But I think there's still a question around, why am I putting these things into the brown bin? Where is it all going? So do tell us, once somebody actually comes, collects it, puts it into the lorry, where is that waste going and what happens to it?
Yes. So it is recycling and it is reuse as well. So when your brown bin is collected, it's either going to be treated in one or two ways. There's only two methods for recycling food waste. Okay. So the first is that we take all of the food waste and we take it to a composting facility. And these are like massive giant composting urns where we use heat and churning to create compost within about a 6-week period. So we chop up the material, we pump heat into it, we rotate it, and then we eventually put it into, it's like a windrow system to allow moisture to be evaporated. And it makes this wonderful, basically brown gold compost, which is sold to horticulture, agriculture, and actually next time you're in the garden centre, look out for Irish-made compost, because some of the companies are selling that back, and it's the material that's come from our brown bins.
So that's why it's so important to make sure that you're not putting anything in that you don't want going back into the soil.
Exactly, because eventually, if you can imagine if it was sold to a horticultural farm that's growing food and vegetables, fruit and vegetables, well, plastics are going back into the food chain. Yeah. And that's what we really want to avoid. So if your collector doesn't compost your food waste, the other method of dealing with it is to send it, to treat it anaerobically, digest it again so that we make a gas. And then that gas then is used to make green electricity. So this is one of the renewable forms of electricity. And the other really good thing about food waste recycling is that whether you're composting it or anaerobically digesting it, it all happens here in Ireland. All of the plants are either in the Republic or some of them are in Northern Ireland. So none of our food waste is exported abroad for treatment. It's all treated here in Ireland. If it's electricity, it's sold back to the grid. And if it's compost, it's sold back for horticulture and composting process.
Okay, so we now have an understanding as to why we engage in the brown bin process and where it's all going to. And the last thing that you've mentioned for best practices is about to present more regularly. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and this is only something, Zoe, that we found out recently. So as we all know, most people have a brown bin that's on wheels that they wheel out to the front, just like they do with their general waste bin or their recycling bin. And something that started to happen is that people go to put their bins out on whatever day it is, and they go, oh God, there's only one bag in the brown bin. I'll leave it until the next time. Yeah. And they leave it until the next time. And they might only put their brown bin out once a month or even longer than that, maybe once every 6 weeks. And the problem with that is that the food waste is not at its best when we then go and treat it. And all of the nutrients that we could have used to make compost or to make green energy have actually been lost. Right. They've started to break down. So presenting your brown bin at the frequency that your waste collector has asked you to is a really important step.
You know what? I was only actually faced with this scenario recently where, like that, went out to the garden on the night that I had the sticker on the fridge to say, tonight's the night that the brown bin goes out. I went out, I opened the lid and I looked and I went, oh God, there's only maybe 3 of the little caddy bins in the bottom of it. And I said, is it even worth putting out? My motivation for putting out was I went, do you know what? That is the type of waste that it could potentially attract rats or other vermin that you don't want around the garden. So I will pop it out. But as it turns out, it actually is better to be presenting more regularly because the kind of quality of the food that you're giving it and moving it on to its next phase will be better. But of course as well, there is obviously the fear of it attracting unwanted visitors to the garden too.
Yes. And that's very true, Zoe. And the other side as well is that your brown bin is actually going to be quite dirty if the material is decomposing in it. And that's when people start to disengage with the service because they open the bin, there's gunk in the bottom, it's starting to smell, and they don't like the idea of it, and it puts them off. But, if you stay on top of it, regularly present the bin, use the proper liner, you will be fine. You won't run into these problems. The fresher the material, the more valuable it is. And we don't want to waste our efforts of separating that food waste. Present it at its optimum so that we can get the most out of it.
Pauline, thanks so much for taking my call this evening. I, for one, feel like I have definitely learned a few things that I didn't even realise about my management of the brown waste items. So hopefully you at home have felt the same way as well. But Pauline, thanks a million again. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Zoe. It was a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me on.
Up next, an artist turned environmental activist on her latest project.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
You are listening to Let's Go Green with myself, Zoe Ryan, filling in for Aisling O'Rourke this evening. Now, you're probably used to hearing my voice on a Thursday rather than a Monday evening, so I do apologise for any confusion caused or frantic dashes to the calendar to check what day it is. But although it's not the arts show, I have managed to fit in an arts-related story into tonight's lineup. So I was researching pieces for Encore a couple of weeks ago when I came across an article about a local artist who has put together a body of work inspired by and to raise awareness for a unique ecosystem in the locality, considered to be a special area of conservation along the River Shannon, known as the Callows. And I thought that would be perfect for Let's Go Green. So the stars aligned for me when I was asked to cover the show for the next few weeks, and also explains how I come to be joined now in studio by Midlands-based artist Dee McKiernan, along with Gerard Hannon, Biodiversity Officer at Roscommon County Council, where the exhibition is currently on display, to discuss Our Crucial Callows. Dee and Gerard, you're both very welcome out to the Midlands 103 studios this evening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Zoe. It's lovely to be here.
Dee, could you start off by telling me about the Callows and what drew you to create this body of work to raise awareness about it? It seems like a really special place.
It is a very special place. And, you know, I actually grew up by the River Shannon and Loughree. And I suppose, so I always was aware, because I spent so much time, and definitely spent our summers in the water and by the water. So I always was aware that there were, beautiful plants and butterflies and insects and so on there. But as a child, I suppose I didn't realise that it was different to any other field or meadow. But as I've gotten older, and I don't know how it really came to my awareness, but I think it was a gradual thing. And then I started researching and gradually realised how very special those fields, the floodplains on the rivers are. The fact that they actually are covered in water for so many months of the year makes them very special. The fact that they are not intensively farmed makes them very special. And my late dad grew up also by the river, and he pretty much knew every lake and river in Ireland intimately. So I suppose it was always nature, and the lakes and rivers and the lands surrounding them have always been part of my life and part of my awareness. But, when I started to research the Callows and what made them so special, and started to do a little reading and talking to people like Gerard about it, I realised the importance of making people aware that this is no ordinary meadow. And in fact, one of my paintings in the exhibition is entitled No Ordinary Meadow, because there is life there that is very particular to that area. So plants on which certain insects are dependent. It's the breeding ground for certain birds. And if we don't protect them, then so much is going to be lost. Yeah. And we won't be protecting them if we're not aware of them.
Of course.
So I know that's a long answer to your question, but that's what really inspired me to create this body of work and start researching this. It's about raising awareness. We've so many huge things happening in the world in terms of climate, environment, and so many other things. But what is in our immediate environment?
At our front doors.
That maybe we don't know about. That's very special, and that maybe we can play a part in preserving them and understanding them. So that really is where the inspiration came from to develop this body of work.
And Gerard, could you tell us a little bit about what Dee was saying there about the type of species that you would tend to find there, the plant life, and why it is so important for this area to be maintained for that population to continue?
Well, there's a number of things that actually occur around the Callows, and it's through they're managed landscapes, so they've been traditionally farmed for either hay meadows or grazing over time. If you take it in the earlier summer, you might have a cuckoo flower, lady smock or cuckoo flower. The orange tip butterfly, it gets its name because of its white wings with orange tips, the male has. And that particular butterfly relies on the cuckoo flower for laying its eggs and breeding. So that's one example. Dee has mentioned some of the bird life. Callows occur along the River Suck, the Shannon, up along the Little Brosna and the Brosna Rivers itself, and up along the Indy. So they're kind of synonymous with the floodlands and the traditional areas where water would spill out. During the winter time, we get a lot of wintering birds on it. So they'll be home to a lot of duck species like widgeon and teal that would come to us from up towards Russia and up even further north. So the birds migrate down to us. So that's winter season, they're kind of synonymous with birds. You go to the summer season, we have some breeding waders on them. Now, unfortunately, some of them are under pressure through changes in land management over time. And you'll hear the curlew. You should hear the curlew. We don't hear them as much as we used to. There's less than 150 pairs now in the country. I believe the latest figure is down at 130 pairs, breeding pairs in the country. And when I was growing up, I grew up along the side of the River Suck. I could go out of an evening and I'd hear the curlew calling. I don't hear that now.
So that's a change that you've seen? That's
a change that I've seen. That's agricultural practices coming in, but it's also environmental changes. So it's a lot of factors that we don't quite understand the intricacies of how these systems work. So you have wet areas. In the ecological sense, they're called a wet grassland. Within that wet grasslands, you have the river. The river itself is a habitat within it. Then you have a kind of a more marshy area. You get unique flowers, sedges that grow inside and that migrates up into drier areas, then it might go back onto a bogland or a bog area behind. Yeah. So you have a mosaic of habitats within it. If you take the lapwing, plebbean, some people might have heard a recent documentary on it. It's not officially Ireland's national bird, but it's considered to be Ireland's national bird.
Right, okay.
It's a beautiful bird, black and white primarily, but until you look at it through a pair of binoculars or a bottom scope, it actually shimmers. The black isn't black, it's greens, it's purples, it's red hues coming through it. They're an absolutely stunning bird, and when you hear them calling and marking their territory, that is exactly what Dee is captured in some of our artwork. The flowers as well in some of our paintings. It's a whole system that just needs sensitive management and minding, but it's there to be admired as well.
It nearly sounds unearthly, do you know, the way that you've described it, real whimsical, like something that you would only hear about in the likes of fairy tales. So no wonder, Dee, when you looked at it, you said this is something that has to be captured in art.
Yes, absolutely. And you've explained it very well there. It is sort of whimsical, it's otherworldly. Like if you stand in, just a field on a regular farmland, you're going to be standing in grass and the odd plant, but not a huge variety of plants. But you stand in, and I did this, stand in one spot on a particular part of the Callows and just look around your feet. I mean, there is such an abundance of life there that you're not going to see in just a regular field that's been intensively farmed, that's not been managed and cared for.
Yes.
So there is so much inspiration. When Gerard referred to the birds, the bird life and like that, songs, bird song that you hear and bird song that you don't hear so much, and that you would hope through awareness and through certain programs to preserve breeding waders and so on, you would hope we won't lose them from the area where we lost the corncrake from the area.
Yeah.
And those were inspirations for me as well, because as part of my exhibition I have one large sculpture woven out of willow, and it is a curlew. So she is standing in the exhibition down in Roscommon, again to get people's attention, to raise awareness, for people to say, what is that? What's the story with that bird? What does that represent? And by that way, intermingle the art with the awareness. But there is no shortage of inspiration on those floodlands.
And talk to me about the exhibition itself. You chose to have mixed mediums of art form for different installations. Was this heavily inspired by the fact that, as Gerard went through, there are so many species and different animals and wildlife? Was it because of that you're like, they all need to be looked at differently through different mediums?
It was partly that, yes, indeed. And, I think I will add to this, although in theory the project is completed, but there is so much inspiration and I have so many other ideas, and I actually have some projects that weren't quite completed to go in the exhibition, but I'll finish those myself in due course. But the other part of it, Zoe, was the fact that I really wish to raise awareness. And I think that, I know that we all learn differently. We all absorb information differently. So articles that you might read about the environment, or talks that you might go to, or various events you might attend, they will impact some people. And they will suit them perfectly for understanding what's going on. And other people will absorb things more visually.
Yes.
So this really is aimed at raising awareness. And that is one of the reasons for the different art forms. Because some people might say, oh, well, I don't know if I'd be interested in going to see an exhibition of paintings.
Yeah, it would appeal to different audiences.
Yes. So I've got paintings. I've got that big willow sculpture. I've got smaller pieces which I've created by hand, like our St. Bridget's cross, which is woven from rushes from the river. And I've got photographs. I've got my handmade sketchbooks. I've got even poetry. I wrote some poems, particularly as part of this project. So that is the other half of the reason. One is because there's just so much variety and you could use so many different art forms to represent it. The other half is to raise awareness and to try and appeal to as many people as possible that might just have different interests. That someone might say, I'll go along to look at the photographs, and while they're there, they might just learn a little bit more. Someone else might say, I want to go along and see that big woven sculpture of the curlew.
And then discover another piece.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah.
We'll pause there, but don't go anywhere, because we will be continuing the conversation after this.
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
It is Let's Go Green on Midlands 103 with Zoe Ryan in for Aisling O'Rourke tonight, where we've been exploring the concept of using art as a means to highlight the beauty of our local ecosystems, raise awareness about their existence and educate people on their importance, with Westmeath artist Steve McKiernan and Biodiversity Officer in Roscommon County Council Gerard Hannon, the minds behind the Crucial Callows art exhibition. Gerard, when Dee came to you and said, I have an idea, what were your initial thoughts?
Great. It was about 12 months ago, myself and Dee had our first conversation, and I've always looked at it as a kind of a sphere of recording science and ecology put together, but bringing the arts element into it and using that as an engagement tool to bring the public into it. I thought that was good. I do photography myself, and I used to do an awful lot of photography along the river, but I never had the mixed media that Dee has used. There's one of her paintings that she has in the exhibition, and every time I look at it, I'm disappearing into the river. I'm absorbed by it.
Wow.
That's what Dee's ability has been, and that's, I hope everyone that comes in and as they look at the exhibition gets that sense when they look at some of the pictures, that they get 5 minutes away from the hustle and bustle that's going on around themselves. But yeah, I was delighted. Any kind of way we can get, as a biodiversity officer, that's part of our function and our role, is to provide information to the public and bring interest to people to areas that they mightn't have looked at, or bring it into a different sphere. So, as I said already, one of these paintings has the subtleness in the colours. A lot of people will miss that until it's actually put in front of you and you start to see that subtle changes. That's where I see it. And she's a couple of poems as well that she's written around the Callows, and one of them she read at the launch of the exhibition in the council buildings, and even when she was reading it, I was sitting in the middle of the Callows seeing what was going on around me, and that's the beauty of using the arts as a medium to get people in, and the different formats that are there. So yeah, it's I really enjoyed it, and it was good. We're not finished yet, I don't think, so
yeah,
there'll be more to come.
Well, the exhibition is in place for the next month, so how has it been received so far? What has the kind of public engagement been with it? It's
in the foyer, so I come down the stairs and you can see people just standing looking.
Yeah.
And that 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever glance that they're doing and things, there's one person in particular, I remember them coming in and they were hustle and bustle mad, and I'd say they were going on a different mission, I'd say.
Yeah.
Stop dead. Just completely stopped. And actually, where they were walking, they had to walk around to have a look at that thing. That's the kind of sense, that's the reception of speed, and people are enjoying it. And you can see, I know a number of people who have specifically called into the office to have a look at it. So
it sounds like a really transformative exhibition where people just get transported to a different place when they stop and look. How does it feel to know that your art has that impact on people?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful because you never really know when you're creating a piece of art and you are absorbed in it, and you know, I know what I'm trying to portray. I know what the feelings are, that it's not just representational. If I'm doing a painting, and some of my paintings are somewhat realistic and some are semi-abstract and some are completely abstract, but I know what's gone into that. I know the layers, that not just the layers of paint, but the layers of feeling and what I want to convey. But you never really know when you put it out to the public
how they'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. They could just say, what went on here? Did somebody just spill some paint, you know? So it is wonderful. And like Gerard has said, I've gotten some lovely feedback as well. I'm not there present as often, but I was there evidently on the opening night, and I've been there on a few occasions since. But I'm getting lovely reaction on social media as well, and text messages from people who called in and said, this is amazing. And I never knew. I'm going to go home and read up about the Callows. I'm going to get in my car and drive out there. And I'm thinking, yes, that's
exactly what you were hoping.
Yeah, so it's a fabulous feeling. As an artist, that is the thing. That's why I create art. It's to convey something. It's to feel something. And when that can be felt by somebody else, that just is the cherry on top.
And you mentioned that even throughout this process, you're getting more and more ideas about maybe pieces that can be added to the collection.
Yes.
Do you think that that's maybe your next move, or do you have anything else in the works or on the cards that might deviate you away from this, or is this your focus at the moment?
I'm always doing other things.
Of course.
So in theory, the project has finished. I was very kindly supported by Roscommon County Council and Creative Ireland to complete this project, and so it is actually finished in theory in that respect. But yes, I will absolutely continue to add pieces as that I've already started on 2 others in printing and in paint. I am continuing to write poetry, so I think it will always come through. It won't always be my sole focus because I have lots of inspiration and ideas, and just, you know, so many that there's just not enough time for them all. But this, I think, will not go away because it hasn't gone away. And for all my life, I grew up by the river, by the lake, and I've always loved it, and it was always my place of refuge, you know. And I can remember way back to a time when I was doing things like the intermediate certificate and the leaving certificate, and when the stress and the upset of it all was too much for me. At times like that in my life, the place I would go is to the lake shore, always. And so this is not going to leave me, and there's always been a thread of this through my art since I was a child. So
had a lasting impression.
Absolutely. And now that I know a little more, and I'm so interested in learning more, after the bit of research that I've done on the Callows, I'm so keen to learn more and experience more. So yeah, I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah. And Gerard, from a biodiversity and preservation kind of point and standpoint, is there a fear of spaces like this dying out and them not being upheld and kept the way that they are? Is there a fear of any of the species, we'll say, just fading away because of our activities outside of these spaces? Can that have a direct impact that you feel that maybe down the line these spaces won't exist? Or do you hope that from your efforts at the moment they'll continue?
The hope is that through my own role and even the network of biodiversity offices in the country, these kind of spaces will be maintained. If we talk about the Callows in particular, they're a managed system, so they've been traditionally managed, they've been extensively managed, not subject to intensive farming. So you have the 2 extremes that can impact on it. So intensification can have an impact on it. It can reduce the number of species that are in these meadow areas, but also equally if that land is abandoned and not managed, that equally has the same impact on it or potential impact on it. You're going to lose species out of it.
Right.
So it's maintaining the balance between the 2. And it is a difficult system for our farmers to manage and work on. it's dependent on when the floods come, the time of year that we get a flood. We could get a summer flood that would impact on what haymaking that a person or whatever forage harvesting they want to do on a system. But they need managing, as I said, but definitely we will lose some species off them if we don't continue to appreciate them and understand. And in times gone by, we were more connected with nature. We worked probably more hands-on with nature in terms of managing these things. So that system needs to be acknowledged and protected for the future. And whatever means it needs to be for people to be able to live and farm on that system is very important.
It does seem like a fine balance, as you said, that it's that a lot of these spaces, maybe people think they're better left kind of untapped and left to their own devices, let nature do what they will. But as you said, you do need that human intervention as well. Yeah,
they have developed from human, like there's no landscape in Ireland that hasn't had some human intervention over time. Yeah. So they are a managed landscape. So the diversity of species, like the snipe that we get in and along it, those are reliant on areas of muddy, soft areas to feed, but also to breed. They need short grass, but they need long grass as well beside them. So it's a real diversity of everything. The little lapwing that I mentioned earlier on, those need short grass for foraging, but they need tussocky kind of grass to nest in. The curlew needs tussock grass as well to nest in, but they also need open spaces that they can actively go out and feed. If we go for a duck species, they need to go up onto grass that they can graze on. So in terms of if a mallard and widgeon, they will graze, they're dabbling ducks, so they'll come out of the water and they'll walk up along, but they need shorter grass to be able to feel comfortable in. We have hen harriers that winter along the system. They rely on small little brown birdings, as they're called, meadow pipits. That's one of their prey species. They again rely on the diversity inside it, so they need the insects there. We don't have the diversity of flowers inside it, our insect populations go down. So it's a whole food web that's reliant on... It's a system. It's a system that needs, it's managed. So yeah, it's and sympathetic management is what I refer to it as, and traditional management is what's needed. I suppose acknowledgement of agriculture is getting an awful bad press at the minute, and they're not, farmers aren't being acknowledged for the way they have managed systems up until now. That acknowledgement, and it's a divisive thing that happens, but the farmers need to be acknowledged for what they do and the appreciation that they are. If they get more appreciation for what they're doing in terms of the environment around them, they might be inclined to be more engaging with it. So instead of this, and I hate this, the way society has gone one side battling against the other. It needs to be working together. Everyone can do their own little bit. Yeah, people have to make a living off where they're farming, but it shouldn't be them versus us. It should be for all our benefits. If you get a properly functioning ecosystem, which the callows do, you can make a living, but also provide a space for wildlife. And that's, as I do say, wildlife was here before we were. That kind of message, if you can get that a little bit more out, and it can go right across the board to every piece of ground that we're in. Yeah. Just the message that it shouldn't be one over the other. We can work together. And as you said, it's a very kind of fine balance and a system that it's interdependent on each other. You need the nature side of it, but you also need that human intervention too. Yeah, absolutely. If that could be emphasised, it'd be brilliant, you know. Dee and Gerard, thank you very much for joining me today and giving so much of your time and expertise on this piece. And hopefully, as you said, from this exhibition, being there as art is always such a great medium to maybe convey tough concepts that people don't always see, or to bring them to the fore. So hopefully we'll have that desired outcome. Thank you. Thank you. Still to come, is there anything that can be done to reduce the amount of animals injured or killed on our roads?
Let's Go Green, sponsored by EirGrid, managing and operating Ireland's electricity grid for a cleaner energy future. Check out airgrid.ie for more.
It is Zoe Ryan bringing you Let's Go Green for Aisling O'Rourke on Midlands 103. Now, if you're like me, when you spot something in the distance on the road, you're praying right until you get up to it that it's a black bag or some other sort of material, rather than it being a poor little creature. And on the occasion, it is an animal, depending on the state you find it in and if there are cars behind you. You ask yourself, what should I do? Well, there are protocols for such scenarios in place in other countries, and to tell us all about them is Aoife McPartlin from Wildlife Rehabilitation Ireland. Aoife, welcome to Let's Go Green.
Hi Zoe, thanks a million.
Aoife, can you tell me about these reporting systems that are currently in place in other countries at present for such a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of different ways to report things all over Europe, and they're usually around kind of citizen science, reporting apps, all of that kind of thing. So, like, for example, reporting systems would include, say, for example, in Switzerland. So there is a law in place in Switzerland whereby the driver who hits an animal is liable, and they must report wildlife collisions, and that goes to a central database. So there is a phone number that they have, that they ring, and they report the collision, and then liability for the vehicle damage is usually handled, through their insurance or whatever the case may be.
Right.
So Sweden actually has the strictest and most kind of comprehensive collision reporting laws in Europe. So again, there is a legal requirement to report wildlife collisions there. Drivers have to report it immediately. If they hit, or even if they suspect they've hit an animal, they have to report it. So failure to do that is actually a criminal offence, and they ring the 112, which is the emergency services or the police, and then a trained individual comes out to the scene to kind of dispatch the animal or do whatever needs to be done there. So there's lots and lots of different elements to reporting all over the country or the continent. But in fact, we used to have one here in Ireland as well, which was called biology.ie. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, Zoe, but it was a reporting system for roadkill, and unfortunately it didn't hang around. It is gone. So
okay.
And it was a really, really good way to report things, because we don't really have anything now in Ireland that would allow us to report. Now, I know the Biodiversity Data Centre does have a facility there, but it's actually not easy to find on the website. And we recently did a post around roadkill in Ireland and that, and people struggled to find that section on the Biodiversity Data Centre website. So we definitely need to bring something in, I think, to help people, just so we can, collate all of that information.
And tell me, what are the purpose or the benefits of having these reporting systems?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, I mean, systems will, you can't basically protect if something that you know nothing about. So if we don't know what's going on out there, we have no way of actually mitigating against anything. So, people are also injured in these animal collisions as well, so that's one factor. But also then the data itself, if we can gather data on wildlife collisions, then that can help us monitor our local wildlife populations. We can detect disease like avian flu or rabbit hemorrhagic disease. And also it helps us to protect, like the legally protected species, the vulnerable species. And so many of the species that are killed in our roads are already really struggling in terms of numbers. I mean, barn owls, pine martens are only making a recovery, and their numbers are already being impacted by these kind of accidents on the roads and things like that. So it's really the only evidence that we would have to secure funding for mitigation measures, like the underpasses and fencings and so on like that. And it just helps us then obviously to understand the movement patterns of animals and climate-driven changes in their behaviour, migration routes, all of that kind of thing. All of that information could be garnered from a reporting system, which would be really, really helpful and informative.
And I assume that as well as it being able to give you details like, okay, if you can see that a certain number of a particular animal was killed in this region, you're going, okay, that's pretty high. I wouldn't have expected those numbers in that area. So there must be a congregation of that animal there that maybe we need to look into, maybe sanctuaries and things like that. But I assume that it also would indicate for you where the dangerous areas are, where maybe the likes of more road signage or something like that about, slow animals crossing or something to that effect might be needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would absolutely highlight the hotspots. So, for example, if we could have a map of Ireland, then people could literally just click on the map, just put in their coordinates or whatever, and it would bring us a lovely data set of what's where. And then you have exactly that. You've got your pockets of animals, you've got your hotspots, and we would know where those really, really risky areas were. Now, I should add that in 2020, we had a conference around wildlife conservation and wildlife crime and things like that. Okay. And we did have a speaker from Transport Infrastructure Ireland. And now, it was 6 years ago now, but I do remember at the time, and I was really surprised at the time that he said that PII actually have their own app that they use to monitor wildlife road interactions.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know where that data is. We certainly, we don't have it as conservationists and things like that, but apparently it is something that they have. Now, whether or not they still use it, I don't see why they wouldn't, but there is information data sets out there that I think we could be utilising to improve the situation for wildlife.
And so we've kind of touched upon it there. We've talked about how there's reporting systems in other countries, maybe the likes of road signage. But in your opinion, from working in the area, what type of measures can we be taking to maybe make our roads that bit safer for wildlife?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know there's a lot of studies been done on speed. So speed reduction really does mitigate a lot of the roadkill incidents. I think one of the reports said there was a 59% decrease in roadkill at kind of various trial sites and things like that. So, and that just included signage for drivers, ramps, things like that might slow a driver down. And that really did seem to, like I say, had quite a significant impact on the numbers decreasing. But I mean, it's anything from like your basic thing like a signage. I know that mightn't sound like a whole lot, but signs will make people aware. And even if it's just that, it's a start, I think. If we're not going to build these massive big bridges, that you see in the rest of Europe and in America and things like that, even if we can start by putting up some warning signs, yourself when you're driving along and your signs flash if they're red, if you're going over the speed limit, they start flashing red. We could do something like that with a little outline of a badger or a hedgehog or anything like that flashes up just to show the driver that they're entering a hotspot and they just need to slow for that area. And it has been proven to work. So I think something along the lines of that is very, very simple to do. And then, of course, you can upgrade to your fencing and your passages and your culverts and all of that type of stuff as well. But even to start with the basics, like a flashing sign in these hotspots, I think would really make a big difference.
Yeah, well, even we see the likes of, as you say, those flashing signs when you're coming up to the zebra crossings, or if you're coming into a territory where there's a school, there'll be like a warning sign saying, children crossing. So it at least kind of stops a person for a second, that you'll notice it in your eye and you'll read it at least. And so maybe that might slow you down even. So as you said, these things have been proven to work. So little measures like that could make a big difference with regards to this. But what should we do if we do encounter deceased or injured or even disorientated wildlife on our roads? What can we currently do to maybe, add to some of this database? Or I know, for instance, like I said, myself and Moss kind of coming up going, oh God, I wonder, is the animal still alive? And kind of looks like it might be, you're going, do I try and move it? What should we be doing? What's safe for us to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is very tricky because I think instinctively people want to help. There'd be very, few people, I think, that wouldn't want to help a wild animal, particularly if they had hit it themselves. So what we would always say is, if you see an animal on the side of the road, obviously you have to make sure it's safe to stop first and foremost. If it is safe to stop, I would always advise take a photograph, take a video, and then contact an expert because, these animals sometimes are not dead. So they may look dead and then you approach it and the animal could wear up. Anything could happen and you don't want to stress it out any more than it already is, obviously. So I would definitely suggest if it's safe to stop and take a photo or a video, do that. That is a really, really good thing to do. The National Biodiversity Data Centre does have I did say it's hard to find, but it does have the facility to log roadkill. We did put the link on that post, and I could certainly send you on the link as well, Zoe, if you want to put that up. But contact an expert. We have a whole list of experts on irishwildlifematters.ie, and that gives you a countrywide list of wildlife-friendly vets, rehabilitators, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, all of their rangers are all listed there. Yeah. So you should be able to find someone that you can call, but I would definitely say don't approach the animal. I think that's key.
Yes, yeah, I get you. As you said, it might not be safe, and it is about reaching out to these experts to ask them about how you should go along with that, or maybe if you should wait for them to come.
Absolutely, and they will give you instructions, particularly if you have a photograph and a video. They'll be able to make a quick assessment of the situation, and they will instruct you then what you can do next, and you just follow those instructions.
And Aoife, quickly before I let you go, the likes of these sulphurs that are in other countries, how far away do you think that we are from maybe putting something like this in place? Is it on the radars of the powers that be, the people who can actually put something like this in place? Has it been something that's floated by them, or where do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it'd be hugely difficult to do it. I know PAW Ireland is the wildlife crime advocacy group, and they have an app for reporting suspected wildlife crimes. So it's really just about the will and the funding.
Yes.
I definitely think it's something, we've been banging on about it for a long time, and we will continue to do that. But we have reached out to the National Biodiversity Data Centre just to see if there's any way we can collaborate there with them.
Okay.
Maybe to look at developing something like that, or even just to make a much clearer link available to people. If they could keep the website open on their phones, it would be fantastic, because that information is really, really invaluable.
Brilliant. Aoife, I really appreciate your time on the matter this evening.
No problem, Zoe. Thanks a million for having me.
Thanks a million, Aoife.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
That's all from me tonight. I will be back in the green seat for Aisling again next Monday, but I'll be in my usual seat on Thursday night for Encore. So you only have to wait 2 nights before hearing the sound of my voice again. Ronan Berry will be with you at this time tomorrow night for Taking Care of Business, and MJ Cleary on Wednesday evening for Country Life. But up next with Country Roads, it is your favourite country music host, well, definitely my favourite country music host, Joe Cooney, after the news at 8.